Nam yo ho ning ge ko 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 nam yo ho ning ge.
Hi, I'm Margaret Blaine. You're at the website today where we take Buddhist philosophy and practice and use it to solve problems of everyday life. Now today our topic is going to be on chanting difficulties, 4 ways to turn difficulties around. I had a question this week which might pertain to many people. Quote, why, when I think I'm chanting correctly, am I getting the opposite of what I want? The natural response would be to think that chanting isn't working. But that's not the case. And I want to give you one example before I get into the meat of this to illustrate what I'm talking about. I had 2 friends, and they wanted to sell their home. He was applying for a job out of town, and they had remodeled this house. She was a decorator. The thing was perfect. All the houses on their street were selling really quickly, so they were quite sure that theirs would go really well. They put their house on the market, started chanting for its sale, and nothing happened. Week after week happened. All the other houses on the street were selling, but theirs wasn't. They were totally confused. They felt like chanting wasn't working. Then he got a job that he had applied for out of town. And there was only one requirement for this job in terms of their location, and that was that they live 15 minutes from an airport, which they did. Their house not selling was actually the answer to their prayer. They didn't need to sell it. They could stay in the house that was perfect for them. That's one thing that can happen when we're chanting and not getting what we think we want. But now I want to look at things we might be doing to get it in the way of a hoped-for result. And the first thing we need to remember is who we are. It's easy to forget, living in this physical world, that we're spiritual beings living a physical life. We're one with the creative life force of the universe at our core. Many of us either don't know or forget that we have that connection. Others of us have learned about that connection. We were told, you have a Buddha nature. But sometimes, down deep, we don't really believe it. And we doubt this connection when faced with difficulties in life. We feel that we're on our own and we have to handle things with our own strength. But we are creative beings. Every day, we make countless decisions which create our future. If you look at the life you have now, it's the result of what you've envisioned and thought about in the past. As we know, one of the principles of Buddhism is that everything we see on the surface of our lives has come from inside of us to manifest in the material world. I sometimes think that our life here is a chance to practice these creative skills, and that in this world we can see the results of what we're creating. Fortunately, since things come from the inside out, if you don't like what you can see, you have the power to change it. So, if you're producing what you don't want, what can you do to turn things around? Well, where you would begin would be to set a clear, positive goal. So, examine your goal. Is it something you want, or is it a negative goal? A negative goal would look like this. I want to lose 25 pounds. In this case, you're looking at what you don't want, the 25 pounds that are still sitting on your frame. A positive goal would be, I want to weigh your goal weight. Envision standing on the scale, looking at your goal weight. Let's say you have a financial goal. I want $10,000. This would still be a negative goal because the $10,000 is still lacking. Instead, chant envisioning yourself putting that $10,000 in your bank account. Now, once you've set yourself a clear, positive goal. Chant for it and pay attention to internal nudges to go this way or that way, or to some inspired idea that comes to you regarding your goal. Remember, as we've discussed before, you've started a dialogue with the universe, and a response is going to show up. Some of these internal nudges can be very subtle, so pay attention. If you get an internal nudge, don't talk yourself out of it. This is easy to do, as our logical mind has a problem with intuitive sources of information and will often talk you out of acting on it. Instead, put that intuitive idea or that nudge on a mental shelf to evaluate later. This will tend to disarm that logical mind. Think about it. How many times have you had a strong feeling to do something which you've ignored and then wish you'd listened? If you're chanting about a goal, pay attention to anything regarding that goal. Sometimes the response comes outside our prayer time from someone we know, something you hear in our daily life, something we read in the paper. If life's not working as you'd hope, it's also good to review what you're thinking about during your prayer time and during the day. What are you chronically projecting mentally to the universe is what you're going to attract. If you're getting what you don't want, it's time to look at what you're projecting. Are you focusing on your fears and worries while you chant and during the day? If you are, then what you fear and worry is what's going to show up. One of the challenges is learning to keep your attention on what you want and not pay much attention to what you don't want. This flies in the face of our cultural training, which encourages us to look at problems. So to overcome this training is a big challenge, as people around us are going to be looking at problems all the time. If you find yourself falling into looking at the negative side of things, you may have to mentally pull yourself out many times a day, refocusing on what you want, until you've established looking at what you want as a new habit. And finally, take action. The universe works through us as we take one step at a time. And each time we take a step forward, different alternatives become possible. There are many routes to a goal, so you're never deadlocked. Nothing can stop you if you chant and take action towards your goal except one thing: the refusal to take any action at all. If you don't take action, nothing will be the result. Sometimes we don't take action because we know we'll have to handle fears, learn something new, or change a habitual way of doing things. These kinds of changes can make us nervous. Rather than stopping, moving forward, use the chant to handle fears. Chant for courage and move forward anyway. Today, to summarize, we answered the question: why, when I think I'm chanting correctly, am I getting the opposite of what I want? And we were reminded that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, and that we're one with the creative life force of the universe at our core. That our lives today are the result of what we've envisioned and thought about in the past. And if we don't like what we can see, we can change it. Then we talked about 4 ways to turn things around. The first, setting a clear, positive goal. And we discussed the difference between a negative and positive goal. And second, we talked about not talking yourself out of internal nudges, but paying attention. 3, we talked about reviewing what you're mentally projecting to make sure that you're not just focusing on problems. And 4, finally, to take action. We may need to change, overcome fears, or change some characteristic that we have. Now I want to hear from you. If you've liked this vlog, please share it and leave comments, topics you might like to hear about, questions you have. I always love to hear from you and try to respond to each comment. Here are some blogs on related topics you might like. Number 1, do you know why it's important to set a positive goal? Number 2, 8 steps to master the way you think. Number 3, 7 ways we block ourselves when chanting for a goal. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks.